One man, one decision, one step that changed history forever. He was not born a king. He was hunted, exiled, and almost executed. Yet he returned, stronger, smarter, unstoppable. With words as sharp as swords and loyalty stronger than fear, he rose from a fragile Roman noble to the most powerful man the ancient world had ever seen. But power has a price. Betrayed by those closest to him, his death did not end his story. It reshaped the entire world. This is the true story of Julius Caesar, and once you start it, you won't be able to stop watching.
You know, there are only a handful of names from the ancient world that pretty much everyone still knows, and his is one of them, Caesar. It's a name that became so much more than a name, it literally became a title for emperors, for kaisers, and tsars. But the man, Gaius Julius Caesar, he wasn't born a king. Oh no, he was something way more dangerous and a whole lot more interesting. His story, well, it's really about how one person's ambition can completely reshape the world, for better and for worse. So picture this, we're in the Senate House in Rome. It's March 15th, the most powerful man on the planet, Julius Caesar, is there, ready for another day's work. The air is just thick with political gossip, scheming, and something else, something sharp, a conspiracy. As Caesar takes his seat, a supposed friend comes up, pulls on his toga, and bam, that's the signal. We all know that famous line, right? Et tu, Bruti? It's become shorthand for the ultimate betrayal. Dozens of senators, men he worked with, men he probably thought were his friends, they swarm him, daggers come out, and the most powerful man in the world just falls. And that brutal end, that's the one thing everyone seems to remember about him. But see, that ending, that's just the last page of the book. The real story, the one that truly matters, is how he got there. How does a guy from a noble family, one with a big name but not a lot of cash, climb so high that his own peers decided the only way to deal with him was to literally stab him to death? To figure that out, we have to go all the way back to the beginning. Caesar's climb to the top wasn't some lucky accident, not at all. It was a masterclass in strategy, raw ambition, and just a brilliant understanding of people. And it all started way, way before he was this famous general we all know. I mean, his early life was just one trial after another, and each one forged the man he'd become. When the dictator Sulla basically put him on a kill list, teenage Caesar just refused to back down and fled. A little later, he gets captured by pirates, but instead of begging, he laughs at them, tells them their ransom is insultingly low, and then casually promises he'll come back and crucify them all. And you know what? After he was freed, that's exactly what he did. But maybe the real key to understanding him is this moment when he stands in front of a statue of Alexander the Great. At an age when Alexander had already conquered the known world, Caesar just weeps, feeling like he'd done absolutely nothing. That feeling, that lit a fire under him that would end up burning across the entire globe. Now, to get anywhere in Roman politics, you had to pick a side. You had the optimates, that's the old money elite who ran the Senate, and then you had the popularists, who got their power by championing the common people. And Caesar, despite his fancy bloodline, threw his lot in with the popularists. He understood a truth that so many leaders forget. The loyalty of the masses can be way more powerful than the approval of a few elites. Okay, so he's chosen his political team. Now he needs three things: a whole lot of money, a killer military reputation, and an army that would die for him. And he found all three in one place: the conquest of Gaul. You can almost think of this campaign as his personal laboratory for building power. And let's be clear, his campaign in Gaul was absolutely brutal. The scale is just staggering. He himself bragged of killing 1 million people and enslaving another 1 million. That's a number so huge, it's almost impossible to even wrap your head around it. It just speaks to the sheer ruthlessness of his ambition. And this forces us to look at his actions through a much darker, modern lens. Yeah, for the Romans, it was this glorious conquest. But when you look at the evidence, entire tribes just wiped off the map. Men, women, and children. Historians today use a much heavier word: genocide. So you have to ask, how do you get men to do things like that for you? Well, Caesar was a master of leadership. He didn't sit back in a comfy tent. He led from the front, sharing every hardship with his soldiers. He made sure they got rich from his victories. And he knew them. He knew their names. What did that create? An army whose loyalty wasn't to some abstract idea of Rome. No, their loyalty was to Caesar, and they would follow him absolutely anywhere. And while he's forging this incredible army, he's also forging his image back home. He wrote his own accounts of the war, but here's the genius part. He never wrote, "I did this." He wrote, "Caesar did this." It sounds like a small change, but it created this objective, heroic character. These stories were sent back to Rome and read out loud in public, turning Caesar into a living legend, a real-life superhero for the Roman people. As you can imagine, the Senate back in Rome was getting terrified. Caesar was too wealthy, he was way too popular, and his army was loyal only to him. They saw him as a direct threat to the Republic itself. So they backed him into a corner. They gave him an ultimatum. Give up your army and come home to face trial, or be declared an enemy of the state. So there he was, standing at the edge of a tiny little river called the Rubicon. It was the legal border. To cross it with his army was an act of treason, an act of civil war. There was no going back. And his decision in that moment was so huge, so final, that we still use the phrase today, right? Crossing the Rubicon. It means making a high-stakes choice you can never, ever undo. And as he crossed, he supposedly uttered those famous words, "Alea jacta est." The die is cast. He was rolling the dice on everything. The old Roman Republic was about to burn, and something totally new was about to rise from the ashes. After a very quick and brutal civil war, Caesar returned to Rome. But he wasn't just a general anymore. He was its undisputed master. So the question wasn't if he was going to rule, but how. And what he did next was just astonishing. He wasn't just some power-hungry warlord, he was a radical reformer. He gave us the Julian calendar. Yep, the basis for the one hanging on your wall right now. He tackled massive debt problems, gave citizenship to people outside of Italy, and started huge public works projects. This just shows he wasn't only grabbing power for himself, he was actively trying to fix what he saw as a deeply broken system. But at the same time, his consolidation of power was just relentless. First, he's elected consul. Okay, that's normal. Then he's made dictator for a year, a temporary emergency power. But then it gets extended. And finally, he takes the title that made every Roman aristocrat's blood run cold, dictator perpetuo, dictator for life. For them, this just shattered every Roman tradition. It was a step too far. You know, sometimes it's the little things that signal the biggest changes. Caesar became the first living Roman ever to put his own face on a coin. To us, that seems totally normal, but to them, it was shocking. It was something a king would do, not a citizen of a republic. Now, every time a Roman went to buy bread or wine, they were holding Caesar's face in their hand. He was literally inescapable. And all of this, the lifelong dictatorship, the coins, the radical reforms, it all leads us right back to that bloody floor of the Senate. The conspirators, they told themselves they were patriots, that they were killing a tyrant to save the republic, but they had made a tragic, world-altering miscalculation. And here is the great, stunning irony of Caesar's entire life. Killing him didn't save the republic, it did the exact opposite. His death created a massive power vacuum, which kicked off another, even more brutal civil war. And who won that war? His young heir, Octavian. And Octavian learned from Caesar's mistakes. He took all the power but did it with a bit more subtlety, and became Rome's very first emperor, Augustus. They killed Caesar to stop a king and ended up creating an empire. The debate over this guy is still raging today. I mean, look at this. A modern poll shows that over half of people think he was brutally murdered, while a quarter think, nope, the assassins were right to take out a tyrant. This division just shows how complicated he still is. Was he a hero of the people or a power-mad autocrat who got what was coming to him? And his influence, well, it's everywhere. The month of July? Yep, that's named for him. The words Kaiser and Czar, they both just mean Caesar. His whole political strategy of appealing directly to the people against a corrupt elite, sound familiar? It's timeless. And his short, punchy, memorable quotes, like "I came, I saw, I conquered," were basically the ancient blueprint for the modern political soundbite. So that brings us to the biggest question of all. Was Julius Caesar this uniquely destructive force who single-handedly tore down a 500-year-old republic? Or was the republic already just a hollowed-out shell, rotten with corruption and inequality, and he was just the guy with the guts and the vision to finally kick in the door? That's the question his incredible life leaves us all to think about.
Thank you for watching this story. If you enjoyed this journey through history, show your support by pressing like and subscribing to the channel. Many more powerful stories await you. And if this story sparked your curiosity, leave your questions in the comments below. History lives through those who seek to understand it.